Advocates of a bill that would allow people living with terminal illness to end their life with the help of a doctor are calling on the legislature to act this session. Capitol Tonight executive producer Terry Stackhouse spoke to a high-profile advocate of this proposal today. Terry, this man moved with his wife to Oregon to take advantage of that state's aid in dying law.
Yeah, Susan, that's right. This is Dan Diaz. He was married to Brittany Maynard. You might remember their story. It garnered national attention. About 5 years ago, the newlyweds moved from California to Oregon. They did so because Brittany, just 29 years old then, was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Rather than suffer through months of pain associated with her diagnosis, she opted to die on her terms with the help of a doctor. Since her death, Diaz has done advocacy work in 14 different states, including his home state of California, to try and get this type of legislation passed.
So before Brittany died, I made a promise to her to help work on this legislation, pass this legislation, so that nobody else would have to leave their home like we did. I have no doubt that Brittany would be proud to know that her advocacy, as well as my continued efforts, has made a difference, and we passed this bill in California.
Now, only a handful of states have embraced this type of legislation. If this were to pass in New York, a patient would need to meet strict criteria. In some groups, they are firmly opposed to this idea. The Catholic Church has expressed opposition. Also, many disability rights groups. The New York Association of Independent Living sent us a lengthy statement, which reads in part, quote, "A major concern for people with disabilities is that assisted suicide reinforces negative perceptions about being disabled and the idea that our lives are not worth living." They're also calling for better pain management for those living with these illnesses so that suicide, as they call it, is not a consideration. They also say that the bill in New York leaves patients vulnerable to coercion and abuse, saying in part, quote, "There is nothing in the proposed legislation that would prevent an abusive caregiver or family member from steering the individual toward physician-assisted suicide." Dan Diaz is taking part in a press conference tomorrow morning at the Capitol, calling on the legislature to pass the aid in dying legislation. Right now, it is unclear where this ranks in terms of priorities for the legislature or if it has the support to pass this session. Susan?
Terry Stackhouse reporting. Thank you so much. Still to come on Capitol Tonight.